Okay, and then we're going to go.
It's time to talk sports. It's Hacksaw's Headlines, a panorama of the world of sports, stories, comments, and opinions. Now, here's iconic sports talk show host Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and co-host John Riley.
Who wants to talk sports on a Monday? We do. You do. From the DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Center studios in San Diego, we welcome you to our Monday bonus podcast, Hacksaw's Headlines. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, along with my co-host, John Riley. We welcome you to this podcast brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. 9 locations to serve you. You've got projects. They've got materials. You want ideas. They can help you. DIXIELINE Lumber. Go to DIXIELINE.com to find out all the things they can offer to you. Build it, fix it, you will enjoy it at DIXIELINE Lumber. John Riley, great sports weekend. Absolute ton of topics on the table. We're going a lot of directions in the next hour.
We're going to talk a lot, maybe even some Syracuse. What's up with this hoodie?
It was clean. I put it on.
Okay, there you go.
So we're going a lot of different directions. We do a lot of unique and different things on this podcast because we do sports talk the way it should be done. We have topics on the table, but when we're done with that, we give you, the fans with us on the live stream, the chance to participate. John, just explain how Fans Forum works.
Okay, Fans Forum is your chance to get involved. You want to co-host this podcast with Hacksaw. You got a question or comment, drop it in the live chat on Facebook, X, or YouTube. We'll get you involved in Fans Forum at the conclusion of Hacksaw's Headlines.
If you like sports, I want you to check my website. It's written. It's there every morning. Just go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com. Doesn't matter what your favorite sport is. You may be all things baseball, spring training, Cactus League, Grapefruit Circuit. I cover that. You can just pull the baseball segment out of the headlines and read that. If you're big into the NFL, we cover that. We got the NBA, we got hockey, we cover the PGA Golf Tour, NASCAR, you name it, I cover it. Check the website every morning. It's absolutely free. And by the way, right at the front page of the website, homepage, there's an orange box. Join Hacksaw's Insiders Group, because that puts you on the email list, because you get all kinds of things that we're offering kind of special to everybody that's part of the Insiders Group. I know you're on social media. I want you on my team on social media. It's Hacksaw's Twitter All-Star Team on X. Just type in my handle at Hacksaw1090. Hit the follow button. Every time I put stuff up on that Twitter account, and I do it a lot, you'll be aware of that. Also want you to share. Tell everybody what we're doing with the new starting times, Monday and Thursdays at 1:30 p.m. And then subscribe. When you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you will get the alerts every time either John or I put something up on the YouTube channel. So lots of ways for you to be involved with us on social media. John, ready, set, go.
We're going to kick it off today with Aztec basketball. There's a lot of breaking news here.
Yeah, let's talk about San Diego State. Good headline. Lose the game. The bigger story, lose the big man. Really tough. Magoon Gwath goes down with what appears to be a hyperextended knee 2 minutes into the first half of the game at Utah State. It was really scary. Could not walk. Was gone for a good 10 to 15 minutes, came back with crutches, came back, sat iced, then they put a knee brace on it, undergoing an MRI exam midday on Monday. We're waiting to see what the results are. I don't think the results are good. Hopefully, it's just a hyperextension. Maybe the second worst part of that might be just a bone bruise, but those things take time to heal. The worst case scenario would be torn meniscus or possibly a torn knee ligament. It was just fluke. Somebody fell into him. He came down at a weird angle on his right knee. I was just really peeved at the officials. They let the play continue under the basket with Gwath laying on the floor. Play went to the other end. Ball came back this way. They never stopped it. Brian Dutcher had a meltdown. I thought it was malfeasance of the officials not to stop the game when the big man went down and never got up, and you could see who was in pain. I don't have an explanation why that was allowed to happen.
Yeah, that was an obvious miss right there. You know who commented on that was Chris Ello. because he, local sports talk guy, but he does a lot of high school basketball refereeing. And he said the way the refs handled that was just outrageous. It just gave a black snub to all refs.
So we'll wait and see what happens. Guath, I think, is going to be out for the rest of the regular season. Whether they can get him ready to play in the Mountain West Conference tournament remains to be seen, but we just have to see what the dimensions of the injury are. If it's a minor hyperextension, maybe it's a week or two. If it's a bone bruise, that might be a little bit longer, but that can be treated. But if it's meniscus, obviously torn ligament, then we're talking an extended amount. On the court, not good. San Diego State, same scenario as we saw when they went to Albuquerque. Young team, altitude, hostile environment. The game just unraveled. Miles Bird is really struggling, and I don't understand where his confidence is right now. I mean, he was 2 for 12 shooting. He was 1 for 9 from the arc, and he's had more bad games than he's had good games, and this is from a young man that played really well the first third of the season. On top of that, very erratic three-point shooting again. Nick Boyd did have 15. B.J. Davis did have 14. McKinney came off the bench, gave him some points, gave him a little bit of grit. Here's the big issue with San Diego State. If you're not going to have the big man, how do you survive that? And I think the game plan should be you move Coleman Jones to the big forward spot because he can shoot threes. You put Heidi and his 5 fouls in the paint, so you got big physical plus gifted skill big. And then your success of the rest of the season comes from your guards. Those guards have to put their nose to it, defend out to the three-point arc, disrupt the opposing guards, and just try to create bedlam. We have seen flashes this season, and even in the game at Utah State, where their guards just played with a hard-nosed approach to the game and actually got them back into the game, that they wound up losing at the tail end. But they're plagued by fouls. They're plagued by erratic three-point shooting. It's just not the same basketball team right now. Utah State was 26 of 32 from the free throw line. San Diego State committed 27 fouls over the course of the game. Aggies hit 11 threes. They were just bombing away. San Diego State just never was able to do it. And even though they were down, they came back and actually got the lead. And then the U-Tags went on a 14-0 run. Game over. And then they hit all the free throws right at the end. They got problems. So your reaction to who's playing well, who's not playing well, your reaction to my game plan, move Coleman Jones over, put Heidi in the middle, and just have your guards play with their hair on fire to disrupt the other guys.
Yeah, they're going to have to do something like that. I mean, when they were running that, is it a matchup zone? It's kind of like a hybrid zone man-to-man thing that Utah State was playing. And the whole game, I kept thinking, you need that 7-footer, at the top of the high post, to break down the zone. I hear you on Miles Bird. I mean, Miles Bird is a hell of a player, but sometimes I think he gets a little bit too much into hero ball mode. And I think, he gets a little bit off center. When he is moving the ball and passing, he is really a special talent. And I think that's a good way to get him integrated into the flow of the game. But you got to appreciate these kids. They fought back. They took the lead late in the second half. You thought we had a chance there, but that's a tough place to play. You're missing probably your best player, so you just got to move on. But I still think the Aztecs can beat Utah State in the Mountain West tournament if Guath is back. And it would be really hard for Utah State to beat the Aztecs 3 times in one season.
Yeah. Utah State doesn't have the athletes that San Diego State has who can run the floor, create things, but Utah State's got the grit and grime.
Totally.
They play a really different style of basketball, and they just wear on you, and they keep heaving threes, and they get to the free throw line, etc. Tough loss for San Diego State.
Aztecs used to be so good at playing defense and not fouling. But lately, they've been just hacking away. It's sometimes really dumb fouls.
Well, this group is not other groups that we've had here at San Diego State. You see these chunks of time where they change the chemistry of the game by virtue of their defense that triggers their offense. But they don't do it for 40 minutes, and they're in and out. And then it's compounded by the foul situation and where the fouls are taken. You don't take a foul 88 feet from the basket.
Yeah.
It's just so there's a whole pile of problems, and now the big guy is not here, at least at this point, ready to play. Tuesday night, they get New Mexico, and then they got to go on the road. They got to go to Wyoming, which is never easy, and Wyoming seems to crank it up when they play San Diego State. They still got a game against Vegas. So I'm not going to say the season's in jeopardy, but their ability to do anything in the Mountain West Conference tournament, I think, swings on whether or not Magoon is part of this equation.
Yeah, well, I think going into that game, they were, I think, the 3rd seed if the tournament were to start. Now I'm wondering if they're going to have to play on Wednesday night and have to win 4 nights in a row.
Sure.
But going to Wyoming is tough. Remember that one year, it was like 10, 12 years ago, the Aztecs went to Wyoming, scored only 9 points in the first half. Let's hope we don't have a repeat of that.
And what is the combo? Young team at altitude, and now add into that crazy fans in Laramie without your big man. Wow.
It's going to be tough, but Laramie is not going to be as difficult as Logan.
I concur with you. So that's the latest. San Diego State losing to Utah State and losing their center along the way. The other basketball college storyline is one team is winning. One team is losing.
The Tritons are winning right now, and Steve Lavin's still in the grind.
UCSD, a.k.a. 3-Point U. That's all. We all need a nickname. They stand out there, and Eric Olson's team just bombs. It's absolutely amazing how many 3-point shooters he's got. They had 13 threes the other night in their win. And now, with the fact that Cal Irvine lost at home on the weekend, Tritons are in first place, which means number 1 seed, Big West Tourney, which means they get 2 rounds off. Does this look like an NCAA tournament team to you once they win the conference?
I mean, this is just mind-blowing. First year of eligibility, and they could potentially be in March Madness. But I think, to your point, I think the stars are lining up for them. They are hitting their 3-point shots. They play great defense. High, it's UCSD, so it's high IQ basketball. So they're doing a great job, and you got to be thrilled if you're a student or an alumni.
Can't be thrilled across town at the University of San Diego. This is miserable for Steve Lavin. They're now 4-25. The women's basketball coach got fired on Sunday night. She was 6-21. I just don't think this bodes well for Steve Lavin. And I think the bigger issue to me, and their assistant to the president is Kai Schneider, who is a huge sports guy. They really need to step back and take an evaluation how they're supporting their basketball programs, and are they doing enough? Do they need to do more? They've got the football program resurrected, but that in essence is non-scholarship Division III football. The basketball program has gone to the NCAA tournament way back in the years with Bill Greer. They need to do an evaluation of why this has gotten so bad, because this is pretty bad right now. And I think Lavin's job, sadly, is probably going to be in jeopardy. I don't know how much of the percentage ratio is on him for the inability to recruit, or is the ratio much bigger because they have NIL issues at the University of San Diego in terms of support. They can't hold on to their players, etc. Not a good situation for a good coach, but boy, this thing has really gone off the track.
Steve Lavin's a good guy. You can't blame him. This whole NIL thing, transfer portal, it's wild. I mean, they lost Wayne McKinney to the Aztecs. Yeah. Imagine how much better he would have made the Toreros. But talking about USD, but the football program, they're not Division III, aren't they? Like,
they're 1AA, but in essence, they're pseudo Division III. No scholarships, etc. And if they have good seasons, they could go to the Division 1AA playoffs, but in essence, they're Division III because they don't give out grants.
But that's, I think, FCS, right, these days. But then as far as UCSD is going, man, it's just terrific. So let's just hope those guys go on a big run.
Okay, last topic on the table as it relates to college basketball. I will say some things you probably won't agree with. Let's talk about coaches and controversy. University of Arizona loses at home to Brigham Young 96-95. This BYU team is really good. Hard fouls, coaches blow-ups with referees, a really ugly incident for a second time in 2 weeks involving Tommy Floyd, the U of A coach, and his players. University of Arizona students stood behind the bench at the end of the game against BYU and yelled at Brigham Young players, "F you Mormons." And went on and on and on. University of Arizona, by nightfall, had apologized to Brigham Young into the Big 12 Conference. They should be fined for what their students are doing. But it's almost like entitlement that Arizona players, that head coach, And Arizona fans think they can do anything they want. 2 weeks ago, there was an incident at the end of the Arizona State-Arizona game where Arizona blew them out. It got hard fouls, flagrant fouls, ejections, technicals, and Bobby Hurley refused to shake Tommy Floyd's hand and took his team off the floor with 1 second to go. Big 12 did nothing at that point in time in that situation. So this is really ugly at the University of Arizona. Should not be tolerated. The Big 12 needs to get involved. Hell, if the Big 12 is fining schools $250,000 because their fans are flooding the floor after upset wins, there ought to be a hefty fine at the University of Arizona for their student body who chanted "F-you Mormons" through the end of that game. That's terrible. And you got this coach and you got these players with attitude and these confrontations and incidents and hard fouls. Just really an ugly story. So we'll talk about that. Let's talk about UCLA for a minute. Depends what week of the year on the calendar, how good they are versus how badly they played. It's really erratic, but they played really well. And they started to come together. Although Mick Cronin is a little bit off the charts, whining and complaining and bitching about everything. Just teach your guys. Quit worrying about all this stuff on the periphery. They got a good team. They're finally coming together. But boy, the way he's acted is just way off the charts. And by the way, off the charts or off the radar screen, how about Eric Musselman, USC? He left a really good thing that he developed at Arkansas, and they're a pretty damn good program, to come here and disappear off the radar screen. USC is 14-12. Nobody goes to their games at the Galen Center. They have all these one-year rental players, and they're not on anybody's radar. Why would Musselman ever leave something really significant in a basketball hotbed to come to Los Angeles to coach a USC program that's had no historical success with any consistency at all and is obviously subverted to USC Trojan football? And across the street is UCLA with its heritage. Musselman have any regrets? Nobody's paying attention to Southern Cal basketball at all. And then the worst topic was what happened at Fresno State. And this is really bad. 3 of their top players are removed from the team. There's an investigation going on that Fresno State basketball players may have been betting on games. Were they betting on their team to win, their team to lose? Were they betting on games to pocket money? They're 5-22. It's just been a disaster of a season. And now there's a sentiment that if this scandal flips the way it looks like it might be going, because there's 2 investigations going on, that maybe Fresno State might be uninvited by the Pac-12, which would be catastrophic to that school, its football program, which is trying to pick itself up off the ground, and a basketball program that's lying in the gutter. And this 3 players removed, 2 of them, their leading scorers, betting on games. And by the way, the point shaving has occurred in the past at Fresno State in the Jerry Tarkanian era.
Yeah, I remember that.
If you remember that.
Tark the Shark.
Yeah. So there's a bad set of circumstances at a couple different locations. So, John, would you please help Mick Cronin at UCLA before he self-destructs and melts down? Do you agree or disagree with me? Musselman have regrets over doing what he did coming to Southern Cal? And if you feel like talking about the University of Arizona and that coach and those players and the entitlement of the fans and then the Fresno State situation, the floor is yours.
Oh my God, so much on the table there. Fresno State's a weird thing. Like every once in a while, they're really good. I remember one time they knocked off USC in football one time when they were like a top 10 program. This is like 20 years ago. But yeah, it's not looking good. But the Pac-12 can't get rid of them because they need to get another football team, a football school. And now they might have to go get 2 if they let go of them. The other comments real quick is on the University of Arizona. Clearly the FU Mormon thing, that's obviously way over the line. But, a lot of these student sections, I mean, they're pretty rowdy, and they call out. I mean, even the show in San Diego State, the Herd up at Utah State. I mean, the Herd puts out like a bulletin list of all the personal notes about players so they can rant on them and poke at them. And so, yeah, there's this going on. But again, you can't really blame, the coach at Arizona for what the fans are doing. That's more of a student-wide, university-wide issue. Like president of the university needs to step in there.
Even if the coach perpetuates the atmosphere that exists in the building.
Well, what did the coach, what was the reason that Bobby Hurley wouldn't shake hands at the end?
Because there were so many flagrant fouls and there was so much crap talk from Arizona players to everybody. He was just so offended, and that's why he would not shake Floyd's hand. That's why he took his players off the floor in the final second of the game, because he was afraid there was going to be an incident in the handshake line, and Arizona's had incidents in the handshake line prior to.
Really?
Yes.
No, I don't. It doesn't make any sense. U of A, man, the Lute Olson era, that was a clean program, wasn't it?
Yes.
Has it all just gone downhill with, because they've had multiple coaches now that have gotten into trouble.
So, ugly situation. Okay, that's where we are. All things college basketball. Last topic on the table involves things in the NBA.
Lakers, Clippers, wins, losses, and setbacks.
Please explain to me Lakers winning in Denver. Please explain Denver with a 9-game winning streak, not even showing up at home. Please explain to me the Joker having 2 baskets in 35 minutes. Then you can please explain to me what we got from Luka, which was his best game of the season, 35 points, yelling at people like he normally did in Dallas. He played really well. So for at least one night, the Lakers really played well, and the Denver Nuggets saw their 9-game winning streak go down the drain, and they just don't look like a really, really good basketball team at that point in time. Clippers, hate to say that this might be happening. Now they have to sit Kawhi Leonard again. Not the right knee. Now he's got an injured left foot. He's down. Their big shooting forward is now Nick Powell. He has to sit. He's got tendonitis in a knee. And suddenly, fatigue is set in on their big guy, Zubac. He's not producing the way he did. And all of a sudden, it looks like Tyrone Lue's team is starting to run on fumes. They don't know whether Kawhi is going to be back in the middle of this week. And in San Antonio, we talked extensively about what the Spurs had become when Bojana, Popovich, trades, Stefan Castle, the draft, etc. Well, they lose Wemby, and 48 hours later, Popovich has a setback, and they announce that Greg Popovich is not going to coach the rest of this year. He has been recovering from what they thought was a minor stroke, but there have been issues in the rehab, and I think it's all stress-driven, and Popovich has come to the determination he can't coach this year. So suddenly San Antonio's season, they've lost 14 of the last 20, started to really veer off the road. So you're a big Laker fan. Just explain the schizophrenia that is Laker basketball, how you could lose to freaking Utah and Charlotte and then go win and see Denver with a 9-game winning streak and punch them in the mouth.
Well, they clearly saw your podcast when you put up on the board their upcoming schedule, and there were 2 games against the Nuggets and a lot of other really good teams. We thought there was no way they were going to be able to turn it on. But, Luka and LeBron, man, when they got everything going, they're tough to beat. Was that game in LA or was it in Denver?
Denver.
It was in Denver at elevation.
The Joker had 2 baskets in 35 minutes. How's that possible?
Well, it's clearly the outstanding defense of Rui Hachimura or someone else on there. I don't know. I didn't see the game, but I'm not sure what to take on these Lakers. Are they a championship caliber team that can go and make a deep run, or is this a team that's just going to squeak into the playoffs?
Okay, all things NBA. So the Fans Forum chat box is open. Your reaction at San Diego State. How significant is this injury to the big guy? Let's talk about Magoon Guath and what the Aztecs have to do to be different, or can't they do it because it's just not the same program at this point with this collection of guys on the roster? You want to talk about the University of Arizona and how they act around people? Is there somebody who's a UCLA fan, somebody a USC fan? Jump on board. Lakers line is open for business if you want to talk NBA hoops. Fans Forum chat box is open right now. Join us so you can get in line. We're at halftime. This podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. John, they've been in business 100 years. That's serving a lot of people for a long period of time. Windows, doors, their specialty, but they do other unique things too. What do you like most about DIXIELINE from all your experience?
From all my experience, man, these guys, they're a pillar of the San Diego community, helping build homes here locally. You can get some sweet deals. You go to DIXIELINE.com, go up into a menu there, and you can get on their mailing list to get, all their specials that they put out. They have sales on power tools, on lumber, building materials. I mean, all kinds of different things. But yeah, here you can see on the screen here, this is some custom homes that are being built throughout San Diego County. And, a lot of these local builders trust DIXIELINE to provide all of the lumber on time, on schedule, just in time at the right phase of construction. And they're also going to be installing doors and windows and kitchen, bath, the whole thing. So DIXIELINE, a great partner for San Diegans and for sports fans in San Diego.
You can build it. You can fix it. You will enjoy it for 2025, thanks to DIXIELINE Lumber. We're at halftime, our Monday bonus podcast. Just a couple of reminders. When we're done, we let you co-host the show with us because we do sports talk the way it should be done. Get ready to pick a topic on the table. Jump into the Fans Forum chat box with a question, with a statement, with an answer. Like sports, please check my website. I write on it every day. It's there first thing in the morning for you. Go to leehacksawhamilton.com. When you go to the website, there's an orange box right on the front page, the home page. Fill it out. Become part of the insiders group. You get on my email list for special things. Want you to share, want you to tell everybody what we do Mondays and Thursdays at 1:30 p.m. Want you to subscribe with what we're doing also. That way you'll get alerts every time John or I put things up on the YouTube channel, and we do that virtually every day of the week. And we thank you for being part, making this podcast just a blockbuster of a success as we move into our third year. John, we're ready for the second half. Man, we got a lot more topics to talk about. Fire away.
So let's go talk spring training baseball. I mean, the Padres looking at a lot of newcomers.
Well, the Padres won the first couple of games right out of the gate, and some guys make statements in their first couple of Cactus League games about, I want that job. Obviously, the competition, they got 7 different guys fighting for the left field spot. They've got obviously 4 to 5 pitchers fighting for the number 5 spot in the rotation, and there is a fight as to who is going to be the starting catcher. Gavin Sheets had 2 doubles in his first game, but then wound up going 0 for 3 the next time he got the chance to play. Eggy Rosario is kind of making a statement. He's getting a base hit in every game that he's playing for the Padres in the spring. Might be a third, a little bit at second. He's part of this mixed bag also in left field. This super utility guy, Mike Brousseau, who's been around the block as a bench player, back-to-back doubles his first 2 games for the Padres, so he's kind of pushing his name to the front of the scorecard and say, hey, I want to be one of those bench bunch guys. Matt Waldron contemplating a lot more knuckleballs this year. 2 innings, 1 run allowed, threw 20 knuckleballs of the 32 pitches that he threw in his first exhibition game. Big issue, though, for the Padres. They got guys that are hurt. Sean Reynolds has got a sprained foot. He's in a boot. That's going to sidetrack him for a chunk of time, which means if he can't throw, that sets him further back in terms of being ready. Luckily, they got 5 weeks left to try to get him ready for spring training and then the start of the season. Brian Hoying came to camp with soreness in his shoulder. He's not thrown yet. If you haven't thrown by week 3 of the Cactus League, you got a problem being ready for opening day. So just keep an eye on those pitchers because those 2 guys are supposed to be integral parts of the setup collection there. Comment on the Padres?
Is a guy that has done pretty well here is Gavin Sheets. And that might be, he had 2 doubles, I think, in the first game. And that
first game, and then hasn't had a hit since.
Well, he hasn't. Okay, that was the thing is I'm wondering if they could unlock all that potential, yes, he could be like one of the surprise players that they need. And if everything went smoothly, he would be a perfect DH for this team.
Oh, DH, left field, a little bit of first base. End of the day, has hit home runs in the minors, hit some home runs for the White Sox, has not hit for average, and strikes out 1 every 3.7 at-bats.
Now, that ain't going to get it done.
So they got to work on him. We'll give him his opportunity. That's all things Padre baseball. Let's go from that team to the next team at Camelback Ranch.
Good news for the LA Dodgers.
Dodgers, a couple wins. Dustin May, 1 inning first start over 2 years. Dustin May clocked at 95. The guy was really strong. He threw 15 pitches, just very, very impressive. Clocked at 95 miles an hour. Just to see his emotion on the mound when he got through his first inning. And remember, this is the young pitcher who's had 2 elbow surgeries and then had the emergency surgery on his neck with a torn esophagus to save his life. Just absolutely amazing. Dodgers got all these young guys. Zy Hope, kid hit the hell out of the ball at Double-A. He crashed a 2-run home run over the weekend for the Dodgers. Now, he's not going to make the opening day team, but they've just got all these young guys. Keep an eye on that name. Ohtani, third bullpen, 95 miles an hour. Ohtani, third bullpen, throwing 2-seams, 4-seam fastballs at 95, and then went to curveballs. They think he is ahead of the curve. He might be ready to pitch in April. Initially, they said June, then they said May. Now they're saying because he's amped it up with no setbacks at all to that elbow. He's also started taking batting practice for the first time, coming off the shoulder surgery, the left shoulder surgery. So far, so good. Tony Gonsolin, another guy coming off injury. 1 inning, no hits, 2 strikeouts for Gonsolin in his first start. So they got good news on May, Gonsolin, and Showtime so far. The Bobby Miller situation, the very scary incident, getting hit on the top of the skull, no fracture, had headaches through the weekend. Today was cleared from concussion protocol, back on the mound throwing. We'll see how he feels tonight, whether or not there's a different reaction tomorrow. But boy, he's kind of bounced back pretty quickly. And obviously, they were very, very lucky that he did not suffer a fractured skull based on that 106-mile-an-hour line drive that hit him right here on the bone of the top skull. So we got that. Angels, a lot of young pitchers. They're trying to find somebody that's going to be the right guy. Caden Dana, young draft pick, pitched well in spurts last end of the season. Looked like he might be in the running. First outing in the Cactus League for the Halos. Inning and 2/3, 3 runs, 5 base runners. He kind of got whacked around. Reed Detmer's trying to find himself. At one time looked like a number 1 starter. 2 innings, 2 runs in his first spring training start. Chase Silseth, who was a high draft pick, he's just really struggled at the major league level. He went 1 inning, gave up 4 runs in his first outing. It is interesting. There, a lot of the spotlight is not just on pitching, but on a high draft pick by the name of Christian Moore. Christian Moore, second baseman in the minor leagues, hit really well last year, hitting the 320s, I think, in Double-A. They're looking at him at second. They're looking at him at third, and they're going to let him play a little bit in center field. So we got Padres, Dodgers, Angel notes. John, no gopher balls, no balls in the dirt. Just throw high, hard ones. Give me responses.
Well, I mean, I want to talk first about the Dodgers because you got to really be rooting for Dustin May. I mean, he's a special character. And even before he had his surgeries, I was just blown away by the way he throws the ball.
Electric stuff.
It's electric. It's like Paul Skeens stuff, you know. That ball, I remember it was like a 2-seam fastball that broke like across the plate. And it was going triple digits. And
with bite.
Yes, it was incredible. And then plus he's a unique looking dude, looks like Carrot Top out there, you know. So and he had that tragic thing with he was eating salad or something. And he split open his esophagus.
Almost died.
Yeah, what a weird injury. So, you know, I'm happy for them. I mean, for Dustin May, because he's a good dude. But, you know, everything seems to be going the Dodger way, right? Everything's sunshining and Camelback Ranch, right?
Don't be throwing any rain on the Dodgers right now. We'll report what we're going to report right now.
Yeah, and Ohtani's ahead of schedule. Everything is looking good.
Positive vibes on everybody. Last baseball topic here. I don't understand this at all. And I understand networks, understand clubs, understand rights fees. I don't understand this. MLB lost a TV partner over the weekend. ESPN announcing this is the final year they will televise Major League Baseball. Rob Manfred was really beside himself. ESPN asked for a reduction in their rights fees. They pay $550 million per season to have a big package. They wanted it reduced. Manfred said, no, the deal is the deal that you signed. By the way, ESPN asked for the reduction a year after they reduced the number of games they were telecasting. The original contract said they could do 90 or they could determine how many we're going to do. They took it down to 30 last year. 30. And they did away with their popular Baseball Tonight show. So I don't understand ESPN when you got MLB baseball attendance is at all-time high. record revenues, record TV ratings, and ESPN is degrading the product and then asking, can I get it at a discount? Manfred said no. Now, ESPN, I was told, is really upset that Manfred went to some of the new streaming people out there on the street corner and did the deal with Apple TV at a very reduced price, did a second deal with Roku. That's baseball just extracting an odd game and giving Apple TV a Friday night game of the week. It's not a marquee game, it's a game. But ESPN was upset that these other partners came in at $85 million when they're paying $550 million, but they had the rights to 90 games.
Yeah, well, they gave up 60 of those 90, and now they're upset that someone else got a game.
Here's the other thing I don't understand. So ESPN has dove headfirst into the pool of water with all things college bowl games and college playoffs. But now, because of the playoffs, that's become a separate bidding entity. And there's no guarantee you're going to get that. And they're dumping all this money and revenue and programming into the NBA. The NBA whose quality of play is deteriorated. The NBA whose players are acting like punks. The NBA whose TV ratings are cratering. The NBA whose style of play has kind of become unwatchable. So I don't understand ESPN walking away from baseball, degrading the product they paid for, dumping all this money into college football where the bowl games are now no longer equal in terms of interest to what the playoff games have become, and then dumping all this money into the NBA so Stephen Smith can rant and rave every day about pro basketball that people are no longer watching. I just don't understand the mindset of ESPN. Now, that being said, Rob Manfred's got a massive problem on his hands because that's $550 million, which is cut up in pie, going away from all these other teams. Yeah. And all these other teams are already suffering because of the regional sports network thing. So Manfred's got his hands full dealing with that anger from ESPN, but dealing with how am I going to create a new pie that's got great TV value when I'm losing all these partners, the bankruptcy of the regional sports networks, the cut and pay there, and now what ESPN just did. So, John, you're a smart guy. You're a baseball fan. Your reaction to what ESPN did?
I saw that news and I kept thinking, God, I mean, if you are committing $765 million to Juan Soto, you know, you're counting on these TV contracts to pay for it. Now, granted, the Mets have their own package, but looking around the league, there's still big contracts that are going out. So I don't know how they're going to survive that. That's a shocker to me. But as far as the ESPN kind of putting, you know, they want to talk NFL football 365 days a year. Clearly, NBA is getting great ratings, but I always go back to this one comment that Colin Cowherd said, that baseball is not really a national sport the way that the NFL is. You know, it's more of a regional sport, and that seems to resonate with me because I watch near every Padre game. But if the national game of the week was on ESPN and it was the Atlanta Braves against the Washington Nationals, I probably wouldn't watch it, you know, but if it was the Commanders against the Falcons, I probably would. Is that weird?
So, well, NFL obviously is viewed very differently than all these other sports are, and baseball is off here. It's a tough blow for Manfred. He's got his hands full. Huge. You're a baseball fan. You want to comment on the Padres, the Angels, the Dodgers? You want to talk about ESPN and TV? Your thoughts. Invited fans forum chat box is open. Have an opinion, please. We go from all things baseball. We got NFL football because the NFL is never out of the spotlight.
Yeah, we talk at 365 days a year too.
All right, let's look at the NFL notebook. We're on the clock. We're waiting to see what the Rams are going to do. The Rams have given Matthew Stafford's agent permission to talk to other NFL teams about the parameters of a contract that they might pay him if the Rams were to trade Stafford to that specific team. Stafford, he's got 2 years left on a deal with virtually no guaranteed money. They had restructured the deal. They took some money from the 2025. They bumped it into 2024, so you have a bigger payday there. He's got virtually nothing in terms of guarantee. I was told he wants $25 million guaranteed this season and some guaranteed money the second season. That's a star quarterback, no doubt about it, but he's also 37 years of age. This has not been helped by the comments made by Les Snead, the general manager, that maybe we should have a different type of quarterback. So Stafford is available for trade. I've heard so many wild angles to the story. nothing makes sense. Cleveland desperately needs a quarterback, but the problem is they are capped till the day the world ends. I don't know how they could take on a $27 million contract guaranteed for Matthew Stafford. Complicated. The Rams want a number 1 pick. I don't know very many people are going to trade number 1 pick for a 37-year-old quarterback. That becomes a big issue there. So we'll just have to see where this goes. But boy, as the offseason have gone from week 1 to week 2, now we're into week 3 offseason, sure looks like the Rams are going to maybe make a move and let him go. Now, why the Rams would do that when they're so close to being back to being really good stuns me. Second topic, Chargers. Speaking of leaving, everybody that I know around the league is reporting that Joey Bosa is going to be released. Joey Bosa's got a salary of $25 million next season. He's not the player he used to be. Actually, he's never been the player that many thought he would be. His cap figure is $36 million. Chargers can't afford to have a $36 million guy under the salary cap. He's due a $12 million roster bonus in 2 weeks. I can't see the Chargers paying that. So it looks like he is gone. The other piece of the conversation with the Chargers, in addition to the Bosa thing, is Khalil Mack is unsigned. And the Bears are talking about bringing Khalil Mack back. And the Bears have got a lot of cap space too. He might want to go back to Chicago. So what are the Chargers like if there's no Bosa and no Khalil Mack? And if that's not enough, the Chargers reportedly are going to make a run at 3 free agents, and they got cap space. They got $63 million in cap space. They're trying to make a run at Kansas City's Pro Bowl offensive guard Trey Smith. They want to make a run at Atlanta starting center Drew Dahlman, and they're going to make a run at former Denver Bronco pass rushing guy Baron Browning. So the Chargers obviously going to make some changes. But if you make some changes, but you don't have Bosa and Mack, to me, it's not the same defensive football team at all. So you got that. Raiders, they are talking about trade up. I don't know how you execute this, but they're talking about a trade up. The Raiders would trade number 6, which they own, and number 68 in the 3rd round to move up 2 spots to get New England's pick at 4. The Raiders want the shot at Shadur Sanders of Colorado. So they'd rather auction off assets, get the young quarterback they can groom and develop, rather than try to make the run at Aaron Rodgers, Sam Darnold, Matthew Stafford, etc. Browns, Myles Garrett. Speaking of, I don't know how they can do this. The Browns have such enormous cap problems. They are taking offers on Myles Garrett. They want 2 number 1 draft picks and a player. The latest to jump into the conversation, the Washington Commanders. They'd be willing to trade 2 number 1s and defensive tackle Deron Payne, who's a good player, making a lot of money. I don't know how Cleveland could take that on, because Cleveland is over the cap, and they take a cap hit if they trade Myles Garrett. But evidently now, since he doesn't want to be there, they're going to push him out the door. And Pittsburgh, I like this acquisition. He can run routes. He is a grinder of a blocker, and he catches passes. Steelers had just signed Donald Parham, the ex-Charger tight end, who was pretty productive when he wasn't hurt.
Yeah.
So Pittsburgh starting to move some people in to try to fix that Neanderthal offense that they've run. So, John, those are the problems. You're the general manager of the Rams and the Chargers. Go ahead, solve the Raiders quarterback thing. What do you do in Cleveland? And go ahead.
Yeah, the Raiders thing, I think it's a great move. I mean, because you got Brady there. You've got a whole new regime there. I mean, this is a great opportunity. Even Cam Ward would be a pretty good fit there. But I think the Raiders can do both. You can draft a quarterback and you can sign, if it's not Aaron Rodgers, then maybe it's, Kirk Cousins or one of the other veterans. As far as the Chargers are going, their problem is on that offensive line. And I liked how you said one of them was that offensive guard from the Chiefs.
Yes, he's a good player.
So, but he would still fit on that line with the other 3 number 1 picks, right? Or he replaced one of the number 1s.
Well, he replaced the right guard who is deficient, and the center from Atlanta would replace the center of the Bolts who's deficient.
Okay. So, I mean, it makes sense to me they're doing that. And then as far as Bosa and Mack are concerned, yeah, Mack is up there in age, but Bosa ain't no spring chicken himself. I mean, he's probably got to be around 30, right?
Yes.
So this might be a good time to turn it over. Imagine if the Chargers got like a Jared Verse type in the draft, have some young guy with a lot of energy.
Okay. Are you pro-con on Stafford Rams?
It's weird because who are you going to get to replace him? They're not going to get a high draft pick unless they're thinking about making a big move in the deal, or maybe they're thinking of one of those veterans. I have no idea, but if they want to switch to this kind of a mobile quarterback, a guy that can run out of the pocket, maybe a running threat, well, that ain't Stafford. Who is it? I mean, who do they have to replace him?
No, at this point, nobody.
Nobody.
The backup is Jimmy G, and Garoppolo's a free agent too and hasn't played. And the third quarterback is Stetson Bennett, who's now not played in 2 years because he had all types of mental health issues.
Well, they've obviously got an idea of who they want to put in that spot if they're willing to jettison Stafford. But Stafford, you were hoping he would retire a Ram, don't you?
Yeah, and I don't think he's done. I think there's gas left in the tank. Why don't you just let this play out I think he's got 2 years left.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Why would you take a cap hit and let this guy go and not have a replacement? Doesn't make any sense to me. Okay, you're an NFL fan. Chat box is open. Fans forum. Give us an opinion. NFL Notebook. By the way, let's talk college football because these guys move front and center beginning tomorrow.
Yeah, is this the combine, right?
NFL Combine to Indianapolis. Players reporting tonight. Meetings and workouts begin tomorrow. 329 players invited. The big storyline, Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders? Who's the number one quarterback? Sanders has already announced he's not going to throw. He's meeting with teams, but he will not throw. But again, look at his tape. His tape probably tells you everything. He does have a pro day coming up in Boulder in which they'll throw, and he will take part in meetings. Cam Ward, though, is still the higher ranked of the two quarterbacks. The rap on Sanders is he doesn't have a gun for an arm. He's unbelievably athletic. Mentally, he's just great reading defenses, making decisions, but he doesn't have a gun for an arm. Now, maybe that's somebody just trying to drive his value down a little bit. Third quarterback has pushed himself into the first round. Jackson Dart played for Lane Kiffin, Ole Miss. Guy chucked the ball around a lot for the Rebels. Now, I don't know that he's a superstar, but the guy was unbelievably productive at Ole Miss for the last 2.5 seasons. So Jackson Dart all of a sudden is going to get a lot of attention this week at the Combine, and he, from what I gather, is going to throw. Ashton Genty from Boise State will be there. He is going to run. He's going to do all the things he did at Boise State. That's really impressive. Abdul Carter, the defensive end from Penn State. Some people think he's pushing himself to be the number one pick in the draft. Tennessee's not going to take a quarterback. Might they take Abdul Carter? Keep an eye on that one. Obviously, Travis Hunter from Colorado. We'll have to see how he does in man coverage against other really good players, because when they were at the Senior Bowl, he didn't cover very well at all. People were kind of bagging on him. But again, he'll be focused in this one. There's a ton of offensive linemen. There's a bunch of really good receivers. I think it's a pretty good draft, aside from just the marquee names I just talked about. A little bit surprised Deion's other son has not been invited. Shiloh Sanders is not getting an invite. That's an issue. And I'm really disappointed. San Diego State, Marquez Cooper, that running back did everything in college football, over 5,000 yards, played for 3 different schools, can run it between the tackles, great balance, great cutback ability, extra gear, and catches balls out of backfield. Did not get an invite to the Combine. So whatever he proves will have to come on his pro day. I think he's a good football player. Is he a true NFL back? I don't know. Is he equal to Ashton Genty from Boise State? He's kind of built like Genty, and he's really explosive. Now, granted, he's played a little bit lesser level than Genty played at Boise State, but I was kind of surprised. Cooper, if it doesn't work out in the NFL, I bet he could go to Canada and be pretty successful on a wider field, because they spread that thing and those running backs dart and dash and all that. So we got the Combine. Tonight they show up. Tomorrow the interviews begin, and then on the field each day of the week, a different group goes out there and gets tested. And John Riley says,
aren't you kind of surprised that this event still happens? This seems like something very old-fashioned because, there's plenty of tape and, video content. There's scouts that are all over the place. Everyone writing columns, comparing these guys. It seems like there's already so much information. I mean, can you recall a situation where a player went into the combine and either really impressed or really disappointed and their stock changed dramatically?
Well, it happens every combine. They call it the underwear Olympics. Somebody comes out and runs a 4.23, and you say, holy cow, where'd this guy come from? Well, he can run a 4.23, but he can't run routes. He runs a 4.23, but he drops balls. He might be a track star, but he's trying to play in the NFL. But the combine is important because it's the first time you really have a chance to sit and interview players. Each team is allowed access to 30 players that you can sit down over the course of this entire week and go through your formal introductions. Also, it's the physical exams, the amount of medical attention every player in the combine gets, especially the guys that are coming off surgeries or have had injuries, have to be rechecked. So, yeah, there's still real value there in terms of one-on-one, me with that right tackle that I might take in the first round, or me with a defensive tackle that's coming off surgery. So, yeah, there is value there.
Do they still do the Wonderlic test?
It doesn't carry as much clout now as it used to. No.
Now, that's just the most ridiculous name for a test, but I think it's like named after some guy. It's like a last name of someone, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a tough name to go through life with.
But they don't. It doesn't carry the clout anymore. The interviews really carry the clout. And then your pro day, when the clubs go back in and interview the player the second time, that carries a lot of clout. So you're into the NFL. You like Cam Ward? You like Shedeur Sanders? Feel free. Jump on board, Fans Forum chat box. We're not done, because standing at the blue line, getting ready to take a slap shot, it's John Riley.
Yeah, me. Yeah, right. That's right. I'm out there on the front line. Look at this. Hockey headlines, Ducks and Gulls.
Yeah, let's talk about the NHL. This is amazing. The final TV ratings for the final game of the Four Nations tournament came in. All-time record in America. 9.7 million
right on
watched the final game.
Yeah.
That's more than any Stanley Cup game ever.
Cool.
And by the way, north of the border, the old Canada network, 10.3 million. That's over 20 million people in North America watch that hockey game, Canada beating Team USA. That's kind of cool. Anaheim Ducks, it has been torturous. They've been building. They're about to turn the corner. Now, the Ducks got beat last night in overtime in Detroit, but the Ducks had won 6 in a row in 7 of their last 8. They have not done that in years. So it looks like all their young guys, as if they're about to turn the corner, led by Cutter Gauthier. Trevor Zegras is continuing to struggle. Troy Terry's having a really good year. Lucas Dostal, former San Diego Gull, he's really become their cornerstone goaltender, to the point that they are shopping John Gibson and might possibly trade him next week before the trade deadline. So the Ducks, thumbs up to the Ducks, finally turning the corner with all their young kids. And speaking of turning the corner, San Diego Gulls, they've had a couple of crowds of almost 12,000 at the sports arena in the last 2 weeks of special promotions. The Gulls are 7-1-1.
Really?
In their last 3 weeks.
Cool.
That is pretty cool. And this team has not scored goals over the last group of years, hasn't been to playoffs in 3 years. I don't know that they're going to make the playoffs this year because they dug such a big hole. But their college kids, led by Sam Colangelo, Sasha Pastuhov, Justin Bailey, a veteran, Nestor Nestorenko, these guys are playing well and are putting the puck in the net. And for the first time in a while, these guys are going into games with a chance to win and believing that they can win. So this has been pretty good. Matt McIlvain's a pretty good coach. These kids are responding to his coaching. Got to keep them healthy here the last third of the season, but they go 7-1-1. Hell, they haven't been 7-1-1 in years. So the Gulls are playing well. So, John, drinking Molson's Canadian when I'm not looking. Go ahead, talk hockey.
But I first of all, I love the fact that you cover the Gulls. Because who else covers the Gulls in town? Does the UT have a beat reporter?
No.
They
don't even put game stories because of early deadlines, etc. And they don't hardly do any features.
Really? I like that you keep tabs on them. I think that's a class move here in San Diego. But you have to love those TV ratings for the NHL All-Star Game, the Four Nations. I mean, that had everyone's attention. And, even like President Trump was like on the speakerphone with the coach, talking to the players. And so it became a big national event, and it was exciting. It went to overtime. I mean, what a thrilling opportunity for the NHL to rise up while the NBA All-Star game is going in the other direction.
I concur with you wholeheartedly. So we'll see if the NHL can now use this as a jumping off point to do more things. Last topic on the table, we go from hockey to this. Corner kick me a victory, huh?
What a perfect opening opportunity there for the SDFC.
San Diego FC MLS expansion team opened with a win on the road. Hours after the LA Galaxy were honored for having won the MLS Cup. They beat the champion. I wasn't sure that they would hold up. They wound up with a 2-0, soccer talk, 2-0 victory in LA against the Galaxy. They stunned gunned them. They bodied them. They outran them. They had 9 shots on goal against the MLS champion Galaxy. And a player who came from Denmark is the one that made the whole difference. Very impressed with Anders Dreyer. Always moving. Came up with a pass in the box, rocket shot from about 15 feet out, beat the goalie. That was in the 52nd minute. Came back in the 93rd minute on a turnover. Came up with a pass, rocket shot. Sealed the victory. Really impressive win by the San Diego FC. Now, they'll be home this coming weekend. They play St. Louis, second game MLS. Yeah, I'd say Snapdragon Stadium is going to be kind of crazy this week. This will probably be a sellout game. Soccer has arrived, and they gave their fans an opening night victory, and the Galaxy were stunned. Galaxy are not the same team. They had to let 4 players go because of salary cap issues. Not the same team, and they lost to the expansion San Diego team. Wow. That was one item. Second item, Team USA, the women's team, won a key match in the She Believes Cup, which is a 4-team tournament. They went on, they beat Australia, beat them yesterday. Emma Hayes has got a team that just goes up and down the field, is physical, and just pressures. Team USA coming home. They're going to play at Snapdragon Stadium against Japan.
Hey.
In the next round of the She Believes Cup.
They're good, the Japanese women. Weren't they in the semifinals?
Yes. Yeah. And Team USA is doing this without 3 of their established veterans who are all recovering from injuries. This is almost an all-rookie roster that Emma Hayes has. So that's going to be fun looking forward. I'm so excited about USA men, USA women in soccer. And the third soccer note, Tony Meola, goalkeeper, Team USA, World Cup. Played in 3 different World Cups. Stable condition. Suffered a heart attack. He's only 55 years of age.
Oh.
And he's gotten into coaching, etc. Had a great career. Played for Team USA 3 different World Cup tournaments. Rushed to the hospital. They did the surgery. He is in recovery. He's going to be okay. But he was first modern day really good goaltender for the U.S. side. Not the equal of Tim Howard, the latest goaltender who had a nice career and just retired, but Tony Meola recovering after a very scary heart attack. So all things soccer. John?
The fans in San Diego are fired up for San Diego FC. I mean, already in our in the fans forum, we've already got a lot of people dropping questions and comments about San Diego FC. My Twitter feed was blowing up with comments about the game. San Diegans are excited. There was a nice group that made the trip up there to Carson. I think that was terrific. And yeah, I mean, this, first of all, this guy, what's his name? Chucky, right?
Yeah, Chucky Lozano from Mexico.
I always thought it was Chucky, but I guess it's pronounced Chucky. He is a very dynamic player, and it was interesting to see him out there. And he was a difference maker. Now, granted, it was Dreyer that got the two goals, but it was fun for me as a fan to watch the pregame, learn more about our team and our players. And then we saw De La Torre. I remember his name from the World Cup. And I'm like, okay, here's some familiar names. And I remember
Dos Santos comes with a pretty good reputation internationally. He was a goalkeeper that made a bunch of key saves right at crunch time.
Yeah, he did well. And then even there was the Alvarado kid who I think is a local, and he got on the pitch. So there's a lot to love about this, as far as a new team in San Diego. Now, granted, this isn't the English Premier League, but it's solid. And I think fans are excited right now.
It's a start out of the gate. And there were I was told there were 1,200 SDFC fans there. Now there was 25,000, and they couldn't believe their eyes what they were seeing.
Yeah.
Little brother down in San Diego came up the 5 and beat the team that we just honored for winning last year's MLS Cup. Wow.
Yeah. And the two comments I want to make about the game. One is that on the first goal that Dreyer scored, he does the classic thing where he runs into the corner and slides on his knees. But the LA fans were throwing beer cans at him, and they're saying, man, see, it's a different sport, but it's still the same LA sports fans that are throwing beer at the fans. But the other question I have for you is prior to the podcast, I was talking to Aztec Mike, and Aztec Mike is a loyal follower and listener of you, Hacksaw. And he said, hey, it's great that they're playing MLS in San Diego, but you got to spend, you got to get the season pass on Apple Plus, and it's $79 a year. If you're a casual fan, you can't sample it. It's not like we're going to see San Diego FC on Fox Sports or on FS1.
Right.
So do you think the fans are they going to pay money to watch them on TV?
But $79 for 6 months, just give up a couple beers. You can do that.
Yeah.
It's not like Sunday Ticket where they asked me for $499.
Yeah, but see, it's funny for me. We've already subscribed to Apple TV Plus before we were interested in following soccer. There's a lot of good content on there as well, like movies and different things, different shows. But it's interesting to me how San Diego sports fans are really embracing this expansion team, and they're waving a flag and they're fired up. So hopefully they keep winning, and maybe they can do something special in year one.
Yeah, well, one win in their pocket already. Wow. Against who they beat? Wow. I'm very impressed. Okay, those are topics on the table. You're going to take over the rest of this podcast now. Time for Fans Forum. This podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. Just a couple of reminders. If you're new to the podcast, we're here Mondays and Thursdays at 1:30 p.m. each of those days. Want you to check my website, Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. I write on it every day. Want you to join my insiders group. Go to the website. You can register there. Want you to share. Tell everybody who we are, what we're doing. Want you to subscribe on the YouTube channel. When you do that, it automatically gives you access and alerts to every time we put something up on my YouTube channel. And we want you on social media to follow me, because I got things to say and opinions and mini poll questions for you, the fans. At Hacksaw1090, hit the follow button. At Hacksaw1090, hit the follow button. John, the rest of this podcast belongs to those people out there. Here we go, Fans Forum. Where do you want to start?
Well, let's start with Matthew. Matthew's a good man. He always gives us a donation. So if you use the super chat feature and make a donation, you'll go right to the front of the line. Here's Matthew, and he says, shout out to Kylian Mbappe. He had a rough start this year. He'll be one to watch in the USA 2026.
No doubt about it. Mbappe, of course, playing for a new team, has had a lot of injury problems. I think there are some attitude questions about him. But he's come home, in essence. He's playing really, really well. And he's scoring goals. He had a hat trick maybe Thursday, Friday of last week. So, yeah, international global soccer is really, really cool. And now it's been augmented by some of the strange things that are happening in the English Premier League. Manchester United is 8-12-6. Man U has got 12 losses already. That's staggering. Manchester City, which owned it last year, just decimated by injuries. Not just Erling Haaland, but Vogel and a whole bunch of other guys. There's not the same team right now. Arsenal's is really good. Liverpool's got one loss this season, and they look like they're running away with it. So some of the stuff that's gone on in soccer globally, Cristiano Ronaldo in Saudi Arabia, and there's a lot of unhappiness over there. So it's really kind of unique how the global game now is getting a lot more attention here in the States, in addition to what we're doing with Team USA.
Yeah, and with the MLS in San Diego. So soccer is coming up. I mean, have you seen the rumors about De Bruyne coming here to San Diego, leaving Man City? I mean, do you think that's a real rumor?
From a dollar standpoint, why would he do that, though? I mean, because the Manchester City fullback is just elite. He's going to come here. There's a salary cap here. It's a much different, much lower amount of money, unless he's coming at the twilight of his career. But yeah, De Bruyne's name has been mentioned nonstop for months upon months upon months. We'll see if they can fit him in and how they do that. That to me is a bit of a surprise.
Yeah. Okay. Let's keep moving here. Matthew has another question. Again, spend money, get to the front of the list. Ballmer has done everything right. Clips are cursed.
Yeah, they are. We don't know the extent of this latest foot problem now with Kawhi Leonard. We don't know the extent really on Norman Powell and this knee issue. I think they're a little bit wafer thin in terms of quality depth once you get beyond them. Harden's had a phenomenal statistical season. I would have never thought somebody at his age would be able to execute and just carry the workload that he has carried. But yeah, they need to be able to get to free agency and then find a way to creatively add some more people because they just don't have enough people in the Western Conference.
Yeah. I mean, Ballmer went out and got Kawhi, and I remember how we are so excited in LA.
Oh, the Kawhi and PG and then injuries. And prior to that, he'd done it with Chris Paul and Blake Griffin, and they got right to the edge and injuries wiped them out there.
Yeah. So it's like, Ballmer, you can't blame him for trying. So it's definitely the Clippers curse. I remember Sports Illustrated did an article in the late 80s about the Clipper curse, and they traced it all the way back to when they were the Buffalo Braves, I think, then became the San Diego Clippers and then the LA Clippers. And it was all kinds of things, from people blowing out knees. I mean, who was the kid? Not Danny Ferry, but he played for Kansas in the late 80s. Do you remember him? And he blew out his knee, never really got much of a career going.
Yeah, they've had a lot of problems. When the Buffalo Braves got here, that was a pretty good basketball team.
I think Bob McAdoo might have been.
Yeah, McAdoo was here. They had two great guards. Randy Smith was one of them, and then Tom Chambers came as I think it was as a draft pick.
Yeah,
I mean they had a collection of. As a big kid by the name of Michael Kennedy. They were really good, but then injuries just kind of ravaged them, and then ownership destroyed the franchise. Your guy Don Sterling.
That guy, yeah, what a disgrace.
Okay. Hey, thanks for being with us. Next one.
Okay, let's see. Again, a lot of San Diego FC talk. Let's go here to Callan. Afternoon, gents. I was a part of about 1,000 SDFC supporters who made the trek to Carson to watch SDFC's debut match. Yes, it's match 1 of 34, but what a display from Dreyer and SDFC. San Diego is I guess superior to Carson.
Well, I know that, but my biggest concern 2 weeks ago when we had our first group of people who came to participate, they asked the question, what do you think about the makeup of the roster? My concern is, do you have goal scoring to work with Lozano? Because otherwise they're just going to check him right out of the game. Well, Dreyer came from Denmark. He's a Danish player. And holy cow, is he active and is he fast and has he got a booming shot? So suddenly everybody will see on video this guy running and getting open. And now suddenly you got to defend him too, in addition to what Chucky brings to the table. And I like their back end. They've built their back end, not just with Dos Santos, the goalkeeper, but they've got 3 or 4 veteran guys played in MLS who've got track records of being very stable. And then the defenseman or the fullback that came from Ireland, Paddy McNair. So collectively, it's a really back end built team. But boy, if Dreyer is the real deal, how are you going to defend Dreyer's ability and Lozano's skill? That's good to have two firepower guys there, and then they got some other young guys that they'll develop. So out of the gate, only counts as 1 win, but you beat the former champ. Holy cow, that's impressive.
It's great. I mean, it was a great event, as a sports fan, learning your new local team and getting to know the players and the personality so you can kind of become a fan. This is just all a thrill. And as far as the game goes, it was exciting. It was interesting though, in the first half, sometimes, the pace was very slow at times. I thought slower than I'm usually used to seeing, like especially in World Cup soccer. Mm-hmm. Now, clearly the second half, it accelerated, especially with the Galaxy when they're making those big pushes.
Yeah, Galaxy made pushes, and then obviously SDFC responded. And they came back. There's some big saves made in the San Diego end of the pitch. And I was very impressed with FC. They had 9 shots on goal. They were peppering stuff at that keeper all the time. He made some nice saves too, and good game. 1 win. Let's see what they do against St. Louis.
That first one was a gift, the first goal, but we'll take it. Okay, let's keep going. And again, more comments here about SDFC. Fans Forum, this is from Rao. Lee and John, hello. Where do San Diego State and San Diego FC stand on the use of Snapdragon financially?
Good question. There's a different group that actually runs Snapdragon. That's not run by the athletic department at San Diego State. So I think, financially, I think SDSU gets a cut of whatever they get from men's soccer, women's soccer, all these other events that they're going to have there. But I'll tell you what, if SDFC, if they average 30,000 a game at those prices, that's just going to be magic for them financially. So San Diego State will benefit. What San Diego State needs to do is get their football program up and running to the point they're drawing 32,000 fans per game too.
Yeah, and that's a great facility. I
Yeah.
mean, I went to one of the San Diego State games last year, and I really enjoyed myself. I thought the amenities were terrific, and they had to fix the turf, which they're working on. But this, I think, could be a real world-class venue for the city.
Isn't it interesting? Suddenly Snapdragon Stadium becomes soccer-centric, not Aztec-centric. It's kind of
Just
weird.
don't call it Soccer City, right?
Yeah.
Okay, talking San Diego State football, let's jump ahead here to Aztec Mike. And he goes, hey, Saw, I was at the San Diego State season ticket holder appreciation day Saturday at Snapdragon, and AD Wicker dropped some bombs. I told John I was waiting to tell both of you today. Wicker mentioned the media deal, NIL, etc., but the biggest shock to the fans there was how Pac-12 Enterprises is in negotiations and finalizing a deal about renting the studios in San Ramon to Cal, Stanford, MLB, NFL, and more for additional revenue for the Pac-12. As far as I know, there is no college conference doing this kind of business.
Well, of course, the Pac-12 network faltered. They had spent a lot of money to build really quality facilities. They had to get out from underneath that up in San Francisco. They have new production facilities that they're renting out to the different universities that want to do creative content. And that's what John David was talking all about. But they're still between a rock and a hard place in terms of their media contract. Just because the Pac-12 at this point, I think, has got a limited amount of interest they can draw. They're talking about having 3 networks. 2 of them will be football related. 1 of them will be a basketball network. But they're not talking about a volume of money. And I talked about this, Mike, a week ago, 2 weeks ago. The Big Ten just cut checks for I think it was $52 million for each school from the TV contracts. The week prior, SEC had cut checks for $61 million, I believe it was, for every SEC member as part of the media contract. I've been told by sources who know that the media contract for whatever the Pac-12 comes up with might be only worth $10 million per school. That's a massive difference. $10 million for San Diego State, $62 million for somebody in the SEC, or what the Big Ten distributes, what the Big 12, the ACC gets. They're really operating at a massive disadvantage. So creatively doing things with that production facility, that's helped. But that's nickel and dimes compared to where they really need to be. And they're not going to be there, at least not in the first TV contract that I know of.
Yeah, they do have to come up with creative revenue opportunities here. And hopefully, that's the nature of capitalism, right? We kind of come up with these new things. So let's see what happens with them.
On we go.
On we go. Okay, let's move on down the list here. And we're going to go up here to John. And John says, hey, I know it's a long way from SoCal, but I got to Alex Ovechkin's score a hattie yesterday. 13 goals away from passing Gretzky. Hope you guys give it a mention.
Yeah, Ovechkin had the hat trick, so he's 13 back of Wayne Gretzky. He is going to catch him, I bet, before the season has ended. Great hockey player. I don't know if John would agree with me, but the next time we talk about 4 nations, I want Team Europe. I want all the Russians and the Germans and who might ever have attachments to Italy and Austria and Switzerland. I mean, there are some players of that nature in the NHL. Let's have a Team Europe and make sure all those guys are part of what we just experienced with Team USA, Team Canada, and then obviously Team Nordic, as I'm calling it, Norway, Sweden, and Scandinavia and Finland.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of good vibes going around this with that 4 Nations tournament. And these players were playing for the nation on their jersey. So there's a lot of pride on the line. They don't want to embarrass themselves with their folks back home. So, yeah, they've got the winning formula.
It was great hockey. Now, the price to be paid, there are so many guys who came out of that tournament hurt that are not with their teams right now as this back half of the NHL schedule has started. Kachuk is not with Florida. The other Kachuk is not in Ottawa right now. Obviously, Shea Theodore in Las Vegas is gone indefinitely with a shoulder injury. So there's some damage been done to some of these teams by virtue of their players getting hurt in the Four Nations.
Yeah, but you can get hurt in any other game.
Well, I
So,
agree.
so I don't think you can really blame them.
Okay, we move on.
Okay, we move on. Let's go here to Carlos, talk a little Lakers. Lee, how about that Mile High City beatdown? Lakers over the Nuggets. They limited Jokic to 7 shots in the game with that nasty defense. Also, last I checked, the Warriors won chips without a center.
Warriors are playing much better right now. Even with the arrival of crybaby Jimmy Butler, they're playing really, really well. We'll see if that continues. And the postseason is such a different thing. And I have huge reservations that the Lakers in postseason can go deep if you don't have legitimacy in the paint on defense. I think it's a big issue. And how many minutes can you play when you have to play every other night in postseason? The wear and tear factor on LeBron and Luka is going to be really significant. And I just know the Lakers have very much of a consistent bench, and they, to me, I surely don't believe they have the right people in the paint.
Yeah, again, the Lakers are at like this inflection point where they can go left or they can go right. And I'm not sure what's going to happen. But, I think Carlos makes a good point. The Warriors during that run, with Splash Brothers, Draymond Green, you had Durant there for a little bit, but they didn't have like a big guy in the middle. I remember Lee was one of the big centers they had for a stretch, but they didn't have like an all-star center.
But they had a bunch of guys who shot the hell out of the ball.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the Splash Brothers did a lot of threes.
Yeah, absolutely.
On we go.
On we go. And again, more talk about that. San Diego FC. He goes, SDFC will be the first team to bring a professional championship in sports to San Diego.
Jorge, it's a little early to do that. I mean, we're one game into a 34-game MLS schedule. Great win. Enjoy it. Can't wait for the first home game. I think it's going to be wild in the community, but it's a 34-game schedule here. Let's not order any trophy parade yet.
Well, I mean, if we're going to include soccer in the list, and the San Diego Sockers have won a few national championships back in the day, but I just love the enthusiasm for all of this. I mean, people are really excited about this expansion team.
See where it goes. Game 2, St. Louis.
Okay.
Next one.
Okay, let's go down the list here. We'll go to Chris. He goes, Biscuit Dangler here on the O Canada line. Saw as a lifelong Kings fan, I am currently buying stock in the Anaheim Ducks. Their young offensive line is scary, and with those stud blue liners coming up shortly, I fear they may soon be better. SoCal team, tell me I'm bleeping brilliant.
Not right now. Chris, they're 25-25-6. They're good. They're making progress. They've had this hot spell here. They won 7 of 8 games. And they'd never, ever done that before. The kids are playing well. Dostal is playing really well in goal. I still think they're short on veteran grit. Trade deadline is coming up. I think it's March 6th. John Gibson may be moved. Ryan Strome may be moved. And maybe they get a different type of player to play up front. I don't think they need more draft picks. I think they need a certain style of contributor to complement all the kids they have. Cutter Gauthier's had a nice rookie season. I think he's got 12 goals now. He scored 2 last night in Detroit. Leo Carlson has been in and out of the lineup. We see flashes where he can score, but the young second-year guy from Sweden, he's not been dominant yet, but maybe he'll grow into that role. Troy Terry's an established guy. So I think they've got a lot of foundation there, but they just need to continue to build on it because they have suffered so bad. The level of hockey has been so bad at Anaheim for such a chunk of time. And now it looks like they're right on the brink of taking the next step. But the next step is getting to the playoffs. Please don't forecast. I don't believe any of the weather forecast on TV. Don't forecast Ducks Stanley Cup. Not yet, please. Just get to the playoffs.
Well, they take more than half the teams into the playoffs in the NHL.
Yeah,
right?
but they're not in that upper half.
No, okay. All right.
But they're getting there.
So it's progress. And by the way, I like Chris's shout out to the Canadian accent. It's always funny when I ever see a coach talking about offense, and you see that trickle into like the Minnesota accent as well.
Chris, pretty good contribution, eh?
There you go.
Thanks for being with us.
It's not like the McKenzie brothers. Okay, let's go here. Talk more Kings talk. Alan Valentine says, big game tonight with the Golden Knights versus the LA Kings. Kings need a high-handed shooter. Who can they get?
Thing is, can they take out any more payroll? I mean, their payroll is so high. They got so many guys making so much money. Kevin Fiala has had a good middle stretch of the season. I think he's up to 22 goals. You got Kempe, Kopitar. They've got some firepower. Got to keep Drew Doughty healthy on the blue line. I don't know what to make of goaltending, but Darcy Kemper is their guy. Journeyman as he might be, he is going to be their guy. I think they can do damage in the playoffs. We got to see what happens at the trade deadline. There's reports everywhere that Edmonton is going to make another deal. I don't know how that's possible with their salary cap situation. It looks like Vancouver is about to go into sell mode, so there'll be some changes there. But at the end of the day, last I checked, there's nobody in the class of Winnipeg. What the Winnipeg Jets have built quietly and efficiently is just amazing. I mean, that's a really dangerous hockey team who can score a lot of goals with a great goaltender in Hellebuck. So playoffs, I love the NHL playoffs. But the Kings are there. Kings got to find a way to get beyond Edmonton in the first round. They've lost to them 3 straight years in the opening round, but the Kings look dynamic enough to be able to do that. And Edmonton, all of a sudden, Edmonton's got goaltending problems again. And what I heard today is Edmonton's talking to the Ducks about John Gibson. But I don't know how Edmonton can take on a $6 million a year contract, because that's what Gibson carries with him, unless the Ducks are going to pay a piece of it. But all of a sudden, Edmonton's a little skitterish about Stuart Skinner's not had the consistency this year that he had last year.
Love the hockey talk, man. I mean, I learn a lot about this because, you know, I'm not a big hockey guy. I wasn't really raised with the NHL in the Bay Area when I was a kid.
You want me to agree that you were a dumbass when you started this podcast? Yes,
I followed the Giants, the Niners, the Warriors, but they had what was it, the Seals, I think, up in San Francisco.
Yeah, Charlie Finley owned the team.
Yeah.
It was a national disgrace.
Yeah, and I remember hearing a little bit about them when I was growing up. Well, hey,
okay. Thank you on the hockey hotline. We're the baseball fans. We're the NFL fans. You need to join me here.
Here are the baseball fans right here. We're going to start with Flegel. He goes, happy to have Dodger baseball back. Vicious line drives at pitchers, vicious pitches at batters. Definitely room for improvement in the Cactus League.
Well, Yar's concerned about line drives back to the box, and we've seen a lot of that recently. I mean, I saw that thing. I couldn't believe what happened to Bobby Miller. And thank goodness he did not suffer a fractured skull. If that thing it hit him right here, right in the bone. If it had been an inch down, it would have hit him here. That would have been catastrophic to his eye. So we'll just have to see. He's got some headaches. He was cleared out of protocol last night. He threw today. We'll see how he feels tonight. How does his body react to the kind of exertion that's going on? But Dodgers are really good. Dodgers are really deep. Dodgers so far so good in terms of the stuff when their guys are doing bullpens and how their body's responding. So we got 5 weeks before the season starts.
It does feel good to turn on the television and see a day baseball game, sunny skies, green grass. And for us, we're in San Diego. Imagine if you were in Chicago or Boston or somewhere else where you're freezing your butt off. So it's got that good vibe going. You know?
John knows me really well. John knows I have zero patience for anything, especially traffic jams.
Mm-hmm.
But I was in a damn traffic jam on, was it Thursday or Friday? Dodgers' first game against the Cubs. I guess it was Thursday. Punched it up on the radio, and there was Dodger baseball on the radio without Vin Scully, but Dodger baseball on the radio. It's springtime.
Yeah, it feels good, you know? So, and yeah, all good with the Dodgers. And by the way, the Padres had a pitcher got hit in the head too.
The line drive, and he got hurt. I'm trying to remember.
He's like a minor leaguer, I think.
Yeah. And I'm trying to remember what the injury was. I just wrote it down, but he is out. He's got a concussion. Well, he's got fractures. Facial fractures.
Oh my. Okay.
Yeah, so he's going to miss probably the rest of spring.
Oh, that's a tough one.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Fleegy, thank you for being with us.
All right. Let's go from Flegel to PE for life. Lee, can you give us one must that the Padres need to do in order to come in first in the West?
Wow. Well, there's something catastrophic would have to happen to a number of people at Dodger Stadium, I think, for that to happen. I hate to say that this is the Dodger Invitational pennant race, but for the Padres, no injuries to any of their top 4 starting rotation. If that group stays intact now with the arrival of the Red Sox pitcher, that's a really good top 4. Very deep in the bullpen. But if anything happens to Darvish or anything happens to any of these other of the top 4 starters, they're going to be hurt, because I just don't think any of the guys competing for the 5th spot have proven that they're a full season major league trustworthy starting pitcher. So keeping the top 4 healthy, good. Which of the groups that were invited to play in left field can have a good season? If somebody can do what Profar did, if they find somebody that can hit 265 with a little bit of pop in left field, that solves that problem. I do think they'll have a catcher. He might be a glove-only guy. I happen to like Diaz from Colorado because he made the All-Star team, and I think he's a grinder. He has hit in the past. Campusano's got all these gifts, but there's been no consistency. He's one of the worst-rated defensive catchers in all of baseball. They're not going to give up on him. Does a light bulb go on for him as to what he has to do mechanically? Maybe it does. And Maldonado's got a great glove, but he's got 0 bat at all. So I think they'll be okay behind home plate, because the first thing, according to Bud Black, the old manager, was got to have a catcher, otherwise the ball goes to the backstop. So, give me a good glove, and then we'll worry about the other things. So, health on the mound from the top 4. Somebody in left field hit. Doesn't have to be Profar's 280 or 300, but hit consistently, and then which of the guys is going to bring the right glove to the ballpark. That's how I view a successful season.
Well, I think all 3 of those are on target. I might add, you need to have a good DH, and that's why I was inspired by Gavin Sheets. But this is another one that I've heard only a few people mention, but it's a good point. We need to see Fernando Tatis Jr., flourish.
43 home run Fernando Tatis Jr., not the 21 home run guy who gets hurt.
Yeah, exactly. We need to see a full season 5-star player, put the team on your back. Let's see it. Because I think he's 26 or so. So he's right in that primetime window.
Well, he has the ability to carry them a chunk, just like Machado has the ability to carry them a chunk.
Yes.
And then then obviously if Jackson Merrill does not have anything related to a sophomore slump, that's a really good player. Cronenworth in spurts has proven to be solid. Need a bounce back from Xander Bogaerts, but I don't know if that's possible. His statistics since the tail end at Fenway Park have gone down, down, down every year. A lot of miles on that body.
A lot of miles on that body. But what's another thing they got to do? They got to hit the ball when the Dodgers are pitching. They can't go 24 innings in a row and not score. So there's a lot going on with this. But again, I just like this energy, people talking baseball, talking about this or that, who's going to get the left field job. It's a lot of fun.
We talk baseball like nobody else. So you might be a Padre, Dodger, Angel fan, or a Yankee fan, or a Red Sox fan, or some other team. Join us on the podcast. Join us in the Fans Forum chat box. Next one, John.
Okay, let's go here to Hector. We'll talk a little ESPN and television. ESPN's been dying the way of sports talk radio thanks to corporate greed, short-sightedness for years. MLB will come out stronger for this. Can ESPN say the same?
Well, it's interesting because Rob Manfred, in his statement that ESPN has exited the final 3 years of the contract and won't pay $550 million, and we won't give them a discount from what they signed the contract for. He also indicated because of cord cutting, is that the correct terminology?
Yes.
ESPN had 93 million viewers about 5 years ago. It's down to 63 million. But that's technology has changed everything, and you have to be able to cope with that. But I don't know how Manfred, and we're going to talk about this in coming weeks, to be honest with you, Hector, I don't know how Manfred copes with the erosion of TV dollars, because 11 baseball teams lost their regional sports network TV contracts and are now operating at a reduced amount of money, including the Padres. And now that $550 million that is shared with everybody from ESPN, that goes away. So how's Manfred going to replace all this? That's the big issue. Where's he going to find network partners to replace it? It becomes a really, really big challenge.
It's hard. Yeah. And there's a lot of money on the table here, a lot of money that's been committed in these long-term contracts. So they've got to find a solution. But this is a point in time where things are in flux.
Yep.
Now, remember when ESPN first came on the online, they were 1980, I think, with Chris Berman, and they didn't cover any of the big sports. And slowly they became, the center of all sports on television. And now it's beginning to fragment away from them. I think that's just the nature of streaming and everything else.
Yeah, exactly. And it's further complicated by the fact that the Yankees have their big sports network, and the Mets have their big sports network, and the Dodgers have theirs, and the Red Sox have NESN, their big regional network. And these guys are making volumes of money. And they are not, one of Rob Manfred's proposals is, we're going to put more money, take some of your TV money and now go into a central fund. Well, I'll guarantee you the Yankees don't want to give up a large chunk of their TV money for their share, where the Pirates are putting nickels and dimes in because their TV money is this and the Yankees TV money is that. So it's a big issue how you're going to get to a central fund. It's different than the NFL. The NFL has national TV contracts. Nobody has local TV contracts in the NFL. There's no station doing games like the Padres have their own TV network. No. The national TV picture in the NFL, everybody gets the same cut of the pie because all the money goes in to the pot. Yankees and Red Sox, Dodgers, Mets, they're not going to want to give a large share of their TV revenue into a central fund when Milwaukee and Detroit and Pittsburgh and Miami and Tampa are putting 25 cents in. Big issue.
So you're going to want to break off like the Big Ten and the SEC, right? And have their own little 5-team league. They're going to have to come up with creative ideas. But I was just thinking remember when they built Petco and John Moores was the owner, but they found additional revenue streams there by building a lot of the high rises, the office buildings, the condominiums. But I guess that was more of an asset of ownership more so than a revenue source for the baseball team.
Well, it was the creative genius of Moores and Lucchino to buy all those empty lots in the East Village at cheap prices. And then as the stadium was built and became a destination point, they went back and they found all the hotels. They wanted to build hotels around that stadium. And then there was high-rise businesses that had been built there. But that's all on their land, which means that's lifetime revenue coming in.
Right. But so my question is does that revenue go into the pockets of the investors and owners, or does it actually become a revenue source for the baseball team?
Probably a combination of both.
Yeah. So the point being, though, is I think these markets have got to be dynamic and entrepreneurial and come up with different ways, because you just can't depend on a Bally Sports regional contract.
Well, the regional contracts have dried up and died.
Exactly.
Manfred has an enormous problem. And the other, in addition to the fact that big markets don't want to give up more TV revenue to share, he's got the other guy sitting across the table, Tony Clark, who's walking around with his hand out that we're not going to have a salary cap, et cetera. I mean, he's got to negotiate with those guys in addition to what they're trying to deal with here. So we haven't heard the end of the story. We're going to talk a lot more about it. Let's do a couple more here.
Okay, this is kind of an extension to this topic. This is from Angel. Rare that I agreed with a moron, but Manfred not wrong. Outside of Dodgers, Yankees, and Red Sox, ESPN hardly talks about Major League Baseball.
Well, yeah, I don't understand ESPN, as I did in my commentary. You signed to pay $550 million. You had 90 games per year, plus the All-Star Game, Home Run Derby, and other assorted unique things. And you went from 90 games down to 30. Why would you do that? You're denigrating the product you paid all the money for. And then, now you're into the college playoffs, and ESPN runs and operates and finances a lot of bowl games. And the bowls are no longer what they used to be because of the college football playoffs. So ESPN's funded all this money into the bowls, and their viewership numbers have gone down. And they're dumping a ton of money into the NBA. And their own people in the NBA, the players, et cetera, dumping all over the sport. The product, the quality of play is terrible, and you got these players and their attitudes. So you're directing all that money into the NBA, and nobody's watching. Their TV ratings have dropped too. So I just don't understand ESPN's methodology. When you had baseball, whose revenue streams are up, all-time high in attendance, all-time high in TV ratings, and you're cutting back on your coverage of baseball to dump it other places that might not generate what used to be there before. That's my perspective of it.
Well, it's weird because if you turn on ESPN or FS1 during the middle of the day, it's like this. It's like a podcast with like 3 or 4 guys around a table. And that one group has the 8 o'clock and the next group has a 9 o'clock block, et cetera. It's like sports talk radio. So everything's changed. This reminds me also of like when MTV stopped playing music on MTV and made it reality TV. It's like the entertainment part of ESPN is kind of playing a role here.
Taking over control of it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you do with your spare time. I don't know that I could sit there all day and listen to guys yell at each other all day. I just can't do that.
Well, sometimes I just have it on in the background, if I'm doing something around the house. But it's there's a lot of new faces, a lot of new talk shows, and very little of it is about baseball. It's usually NBA and NFL.
It's sad. And so they've denigrated the product they paid a lot of money for.
Yeah.
How stupid is that? Okay, we move on. A couple more before we get to social media.
Okay, let's go here to and says, question, is it concerning if the Dodgers don't win spring training games? It's looked flat so far, and they're getting blown out.
Well, it's exhibition games. Does it count in the standings? No. Exhibition games are get your guys live action fire, hopefully get out of there without any significant injuries. And the third piece of the equation, my young guys. Have they made a jump? How do they do competing against the next level? So exhibition games are special, but they have meaning for only a certain amount. It's not about Freddie Freeman. Now, if it's about guys coming off injuries, and the Dodgers have a checklist of a lot of those guys coming off surgery. So, but the outcoming games, no, not a big deal. Enjoy the game. If you go to the Cactus League and you go see the Padres in Peoria, just enjoy being out there in the sunshine and enjoying the game, or Camelback Ranch, etc. Doesn't mean anything till we get to opening day, but they need in this what's left of the next 5 weeks, they need to get answers on a whole bunch of guys. And so spring training has that value. Wins and losses, nah.
Yeah, exactly. Again, I remember as a kid reading the green sheet of the San Francisco Chronicle, and they would do spring training standings. And this is in the 1970s when the San Francisco Giants were horrible. And most years they had a really good spring training record. And I remember my cousins and my uncle would say, oh, it doesn't mean anything. It's just spring training. I'm like, but they're in first place. And of course, everything went to hell in a handbasket. So yeah, I don't think Om has much to worry about. But also the other thing I remember as a kid with spring training is how you'd see the local news would cover a game, like just in the highlights of the local news. And they would be wearing not their whites or their gray jerseys. They would be wearing a solid color jersey. For the Giants, it might be all black or all orange. And I remember thinking, wow, that's different. And now we see these as alternative jerseys everywhere.
Yeah, well, that's Reebok and everybody else who's got these contracts to create new inventory. Like I saw the Phillies yesterday on TV, and the Phillies are wearing their special spring training hats. And what's on the hat? The Liberty Bell. It's not the P. It's not, that's not good. The logo. It's a Liberty Bell. That's kind of cool. Padres ought to wear spring training hats with just the swinging friar. We don't need SD.
Mm-hmm.
The Pirates got that great old historic Buccaneer logo. Put that on your helmet or put that on a spring training jersey, because it's all merchandising. It's selling. It's marketing.
Well, I think that part of it is great. I have a friend of mine who's a traditionalist, and he hates it all. Why do they have these alternative hats? And I don't like this. But I think it's terrific when they do that. And what was it? The Padres, they've had some spring training gear in the past, but it used to always be the St. Patrick's Day game was the one they first changed. And then now suddenly it's different all the time. It's good though.
Yeah. The Mets, I saw an interview with Pete Alonso, who just re-signed, and their colors are blue and orange. And they've got their great historical Mets script they've had ever since day one, back to 1962 when they lost 120 games. But they got something different this year. So he's wearing a blue and orange cap, not with the NY, but with a cartoon character, Mr. Met. Kind of cool looking.
That is good.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, and the Phillies are smart too, because if you just have the Liberty Bell, that can expand to be appealing to people outside of sports.
Yep.
So it's all good stuff. It is.
Okay. Let's do one more here, and then we're gonna go to social media.
Okay. Let's go here for Gary, and he says, "Hey, are the Padres going to charge $20 a month for games on TV?"
Yeah, actually, you know what the Padres are doing right now? On Padres.tv. They're offering 20 games in the Cactus League free. So if you want to sample it, I guess you just go to Padres.tv, and I guess you can sign up and you get the exhibition games for free. Now, there is a package where you subscribe for, I think it's $19.99 a month. It might be, I don't know what it is for the whole year, but yeah, that you can get it through Padres TV. I happen to get it through cable, through DirecTV. But there's different ways, different costs etc. But the Padres situation is pretty good compared to other markets where they've really struggled to come up with the right TV package and the right pricing.
Yeah, for me, it's bundled into my direct TV stream package.
Yep.
So, for you, it's in your cable, but a lot of people are cutting the cord, and that's a serious thing as far as how these companies are managing it. But, this kind of goes back to that point that Aztec Mike was making with me earlier about Apple TV and pay-per-view for MLS. Do you think that it's a disservice to the community by not putting more games on free TV? And I put that in quotes because we still pay for cable.
You got to find somebody. It's not really, you're not giving the games to a TV station for free. The Padres are talking about a Saturday package with one of the local TV stations that will be on free TV. I don't know whether it's Fox 5 or the one I do stuff at KUSI. It might be one of them, that there will be a Saturday free package on local TV. That's what I hear. But you got to, if you're going to try to have your games on normal television, that means you need somebody who's going to put a bid in and pay you financially and then take on the cost to televise it. That's not cheap in a day and age where the advertising marketing community has really become squashed.
Yeah. I mean, that whole thing is changing as well because people aren't, doing major sponsorships. They're doing paid search and pay-per-click advertising. So yeah, it's a different world. We'll see where it goes, but check Padres.tv because I was told there are going to be 20 free Padre games on Padre.tv during spring training, and then you can investigate what the regular season package might be like. Okay, John, let's go to social media here real quick. Okay, let's talk some Angels baseball. This is with Calb. It says, hey, new season, same old Angels. Take it from a long-suffering Anaheim resident. We have seen this movie before. The biggest Moreno failure has to be having Ohtani and Trout on the roster at the same time with nothing to show for it. And as always, the Halos managed to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. Yep, same old Angels.
Well, it's been a traumatic time. Artie Moreno's made a lot of mistakes, but he finally, he ended his 3-year embargo on talking to the media. And he spoke to the media last week. I did a big thing on KUSI about that on Saturday Sports. He's taken blame. So the next thing is, don't be impulsive. Try not to make mistakes on free agents. He made terrible mistakes on Josh Hamilton, Vernon Wells, Justin Upton. And then he thought he had a good acquisition in Anthony Rendon, who had never been hurt in Washington, came here and has never been healthy. So he's just been a victim of some of his own bad decisions, been a victim of some bad luck. They've got to rebuild the farm system. That takes a hell of a lot of time. They got some young guys. They forced them all to Angel Stadium last year, and they played okay, but they still lost 99 games. It's a long road back. When you get down in the gutter, as they've been down, it takes a long time to come back from. So can they turn the corner? It might take 2 years. Need some good luck, need some good acquisitions, need somebody from these high draft picks in the farm system to step forward, and we'll just have to see where it goes. It's a great market. It's a market unto itself, and they've not served the market very well because he's made some mistakes as owners, some that he brought on himself, others he just victimized himself.
Well, I was reading in your best 15, what's the kid's name, Luis Regnifo?
Yes.
Yeah, and he was an infielder, but they're trying him out in center now.
Oh, they're looking at him to see. That's because they've got the young draft pick, Caleb Moore, that might be the second baseman, and Rengifo might become the center field. He had 300 last season, beat him in arbitration too.
Okay.
So get the bat in the lineup. But that's dependent on what Caleb Moore does. Could Moore hit major league pitching at such a young, tender age?
All right.
Next one.
Moving on. Okay, let's talk Lakers. And this is from Ball. Reacting to the questions if the Lakers were legit. He says, Lee, they're in the 5th playoff position and they are red hot, like 11-3 out of the last 14. By the way, this post was from about a week ago. They do have issues at center, but they are likely a top 6 seed in the West. They are absolutely not fighting for a playoff spot.
It's early. We got a lot of games to be played. They have a black hole in the paint. That's a big issue. They're playing real people, although they did beat a real team. I mean, all honesty, Paul, I can't believe they went into Denver and beat those guys the way they did. Denver, a 9-game winning streak coming in, and Jokovic just disappeared. 2 baskets in 35 minutes. How is that humanly possible? So only counts as 1 win. We'll see. I don't think they're going to finish in the top 4. I'd be surprised because this schedule is tougher and tougher now. the back end. The last 30 games, they're playing 18 really good teams, even though they beat one of them in Denver. Let's just see if they can hold up. They're probably a sixth place, maybe a seventh place team if they don't have any injuries. And, what's to say that Doncic is not going to get hurt again? What's to say LeBron's not going to have a setback? Then now you're even less of a team then if that happens.
Can you imagine if the Oklahoma City Thunder win the whole thing?
Well, I projected Oklahoma City Thunder would win the whole thing way back in November when we did our preview. I got Oklahoma City and I had Houston as two of the elite young teams in the league that I thought were going to take this thing.
Yeah, I mean, imagine that. I mean, Oklahoma City, that's their only big-time, professional sport that they have there.
They've rebuilt it a second time and stockpiled a ton of draft picks, went through an awful lot of pain. That's obviously what's going on out west. Boston is still Boston. Philadelphia has been degraded by all the injuries. Knickerbockers have just kind of hit a wall. So, right now we're talking about Boston and Cleveland really being exceptional. I think Cleveland's 45-10.
Donovan Mitchell is a special guy.
Yeah, but he's surrounded by really good players. So, playoffs will be good for the upper echelon teams. And I just don't view, I'm sorry, Ball, I just don't view the Lakers upper echelon in the same conversation with Oak City, Houston, Cleveland, or Boston. Just don't see it.
No, we're going to find out. It's coming soon. Okay, let's go to Padres talk. This is with Lucas. Hey, hearing Jason Hayward won't be going for the left field spot was shocking to me, but it makes me like the signing even more, as we didn't bring him along to platoon in left field, but more as a mentor to our young ascending outfielders.
Got to prove he can hit. Got to prove he hasn't lost his bat speed. He's more center field, right field than he is anything. Now, he may get some exhibition games in left field, but I think he's going to give, Jackson Merrill time off, Tatis time off in center and right. Good player. Has had a really nice career. God, he's a 16-year veteran. Very good, very strong personality, very impactful clubhouse presence. And that's an intangible, doesn't show up in a batting average, etc. So we'll just see if he hits 250, he's going to be part of that rotation in the outfield somewhere. But he hits 211, then they have to make a decision whether they keep him or not. Because he hit 211 with the Dodgers, but he went to Houston, and he hit like in his 260s in Houston right at the tail end of the season, but not good enough to stay there.
I watched a few interviews of him, and he's an impressive man. Yeah. He carries himself really well. So I can see him being a mentor. Mm-hmm. And he's a great defensive player. And it just seemed that his hitting never was there in the early part of his career. And then it sort of sputtered in the middle to latter part.
So much was expected. He came up with Atlanta. He was supposed to be the next superstar. They went from Dale Murphy to, most people thought, Jason Hayward. He had good seasons, hit with some power. He got dinged up a little bit too. Not quite the superstar they thought, but I think rock solid as an everyday player. He played a ton of games and last couple of years, but he's not a kid anymore. He's 34, 35, now maybe 36. So we'll just see if he can hit, he'll be here in some unique, different role, and that'd be great. That's all. And he's on a minimum contract.
Yeah, for the Padres, it's great. And by the way, why isn't Dale Murphy in the Hall of Fame? That guy was awesome in the early 80s.
I concur with you. That's another argument for another time. Hey, listen, we hope you have enjoyed all the things we try to bring your way Mondays and Thursdays. We do sports talk the way it should be done on this podcast. We love having you on board. We're here most Mondays and Thursdays at 1:30. Tell everybody about what we're doing on this podcast. We'll be back in here at the end of the week again to carry on with more conversation. Subscribe, share, take a check on my website. You'll really like what I write every day of the week. Podcast brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. Build it or fix it. You will enjoy it in 2025, thanks to DIXIELINE Lumber. John, take a deep breath. We'll see where we go this week with NFL rumors and obviously what's going on in the Cactus League and the Grapefruit Circuit.
Yeah, and best wishes for Magoon Guath. Hopefully this doesn't turn into a big injury for the Aztecs.
And we'll keep you updated with that storyline as we go along. Check my website every day because I have all the late-breaking stories. Thanks to you for being with us on Hacksaw's Headlines.
Join us again for Hacksaw's Headlines on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And find the audio version on your favorite podcast apps. For more content, go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com.